Thanks for having me speak, Jim and the board. I sit there educationally and say, what the heck do I have to share with this group of people? They all probably know as much or more than I do at this point. And then I remember how I started my day and how I start every day. I wake up in the morning and I lay in my bed. Before I get out of bed, I start talking to God. And then I start listening. And I say, just tell me today, put the right words into my mouth, put the right actions into me. Let me do what you think is best. And that's how I get up in the morning. I've been doing that for quite a while now. And it's working out pretty well because you don't have a better pilot than that. We all got that pilot. He's available for all of us. You know, Sunday I'm usually in church, so I may have a couple church things to say. Just bear with me if you're not a church person. It's okay. But our pastor, I remember saying about the Bible, this is a love story. That's what it is. It's the whole story about how God loves us and how we're His children. And so one of the things I heard this weekend, you ever hear something during a New Beginnings weekend and you're just like, okay, I could just pack it up and go home now. I got my message. Like I heard that this weekend. I heard a lot of great stuff, don't get me wrong. But when Chuck Ribley spoke last night, he said, we're not against this. We're not fighting that. We're for that innate principle within us. And I said, that's beautiful. Because I'm like, maybe in my dead past life, I was more of a fighter and a brawler or whatever, or an arguer, but I'm not. I'm a lover now. I love people, even if they don't agree with me. And so that made a lot more sense to me. Because I don't have any room left in my life, in my heart, to fight and hate. And if this world is ever going to change, it's not going to change by fighting fire with fire. And it's not going to change by hate combating hate. On September 11th, 2001, when the towers went down, it was an act of hate. It was an act of evil. I don't know who was responsible. You could listen to a lot of different theories about that. That's not the point of what I'm going to say. What I am going to say is this, is what happened next was love. Overwhelming, abundant amount of love was shown onto this earth. Everybody wanted to do something. Even if it was just stop beeping your horn at the next guy. 2 weeks solid, I didn't hear a single horn beep. I remember when I heard the first horn beep. And I said, man, they forgot already. And I was upset about that because I was going to Ground Zero, and for some of us who were going there, you know what I mean when I say this. We didn't forget because we were still in it. And so I was very sensitive to that when I heard that horn beep because I was just like, wow, they forgot fast. But I remember going up, before I went up to Ground Zero, I remember going up to the ferry boats in Atlantic Highlands. And we were all in a big line, passing water bottles and stuff to each other to put onto these ferry boats to bring over to Ground Zero for the people that were working over there. And I was standing next to hippies and alcoholics with missing teeth and cops, and we were all in this line together. All the different people that you could possibly imagine, a diverse crowd of people all working together with love and care and concern to overcome that evil. There's no way that evil can beat evil. It just adds more evil to the world. There's no way that hate can overcome hate. It just adds more hate to the world. We're playing into Satan's hand. But love is more powerful, because love is God and God is love. And you don't, at the end of the day, you know, the deck is stacked. At the end of the day, you want to be on the winning team? Be on that team. Be on the team with God and love. Because that's at the end, when it's all said and done, as bad as it all looked, you thought you just had a hand with 10 high and no pairs or nothing. No, you got the royal flush. You just don't know it necessarily yet. You don't always recognize it. We don't always recognize it because we so much still going on. But that's what we have. And so if we were to remember that, and as people were saying, you know, have your routine in the morning. I mean, I believe that anybody who has said that would probably agree with me. If not, you could let me know. That in the course of that routine, whether it's through a religion or through just a meditation of some sort, whatever it happens to be how you do it, what you're really getting set is that love in your heart. That love to serve, to kindness to other people. Now, I want you to understand something. You know, we're here in a chiropractic meeting. And I was thinking, like, what am I going to share that's going to help people get chiropractic to more people? And if you listen close, I think I just shared it. Because I could tell you that I've made a lot of mistakes in my life, and I'll probably make some more, but less of them, hopefully. But I mean, looking back, as this message that I'm giving to you now and to myself wasn't as clear, I had too much of my own stuff in the way, my own ego. You know, how's this affecting me? You know, and then if someone doesn't show up and then they finally show up, you know, you almost have this, you could have this attitude about it. Like, where were you? You know, and like, you didn't listen to me, you know. And I'm going to tell you right now, that doesn't make chiropractic as a practice attractive to people. If people feel like they're going to come back to you with the tail between their legs, I don't know about you, I wouldn't even want to go back. I remember one time I did something really stupid. I got like really drunk one day. This is many years ago. And I went to this pizza shop that I always went to. And I was talking, I was like a happy drunk, you know, I was like laughing and telling. And the guy looked at me, and he never forgot that. And anytime I went back after that, he was like, oh, the drunk's here. And I stopped going to that pizza shop. I mean, let's face it, who the hell wants to keep going? Because one time I was an asshole and I was drunk, the rest of my life I'm a drunk asshole? I didn't want to go back there. Are we doing that to people? Are we doing that to people in our office? Because if we are, we better look at it. What right did he have to judge me? Like he was perfect? And I'd be the first one to say I was a drunk asshole, but that doesn't give him the right to judge me for the rest of my life. You know, every week we say this thing called the Apostles' Creed, and basically it talks about Jesus dying and on the third day being risen again and going into heaven where he sits at the right hand of the Father. From thence he will judge the living and the dead. It doesn't say Rob Crystal was up there judging the living and the dead. Not my job, man. And it's not your job either. We're not the judge. Our job is to love people. Our job is to care for people. That's our job. And when we break that law, we suffer the consequences. And I'm not saying this to be negative, I'm just saying that's just the facts. And it doesn't mean it's too late, and we might have broken that law over and over and over again, but there's still a chance to stop that and change. There's still a chance to look back at what's going on and get yourself right with the creator of the entire universe. So what are you talking about God at a chiropractic meeting? Well, let me just inform anybody who doesn't know this, because I've heard this debate so many times. Of all the people in the world who I believe has the right to define chiropractic, I believe it was D.D. Palmer. Because as far as I know, he was the discoverer of chiropractic. He was the one who gave it to this world. And if you read in D.D. Palmer's Chiropractic Adjuster, I'm not sure the page, but I'm going to guess 861, but don't get me wrong, it might not be that page. He says that in the old days, I talked about universal, and in parentheses, God, innate, spirit, so forth. And then later in that paragraph, he says, and I didn't use the words in the parentheses because I didn't think the world was ready to hear them. In other words, he didn't talk about God and the spirit, but he did in our book to us talk about that. And so when I say I move the bone, but God does the healing, I mean that. And if someone says, well, what do you mean? What if we don't believe in God? I said, well, then you put in there whatever you want. Because again, it's not my job to judge them. Their relationship with God, whether they know they have one or not, is not my deal. That's their deal. And I'm not going to think worse of them because they don't have that. They're just not there yet. I didn't have it. Oh, I believed in a God, but I didn't really have that relationship like I've come to have now. So I already know that. I've been there. I wouldn't have wanted people laying that trip on me. But if you want the truth, I'm going to tell you the truth. We move the bones, but God does the healing. And so, how can we be more effective as chiropractors? That's how. Recognize that. Now, some people are into a lot of the instrumentations and the technologies and all that, and I think that's great for you. And it doesn't seem to be where I'm at. And that doesn't mean I'm right and you're wrong, or that doesn't mean that you're right and I'm wrong. It just means we got maybe different ways to do stuff. But sometimes when a patient looks at me and they like they're new in the office and I'm checking that spine by hand and they're like, you can almost, sometimes they'll even say something about it. I said, let me ask you a question. Because I know there's all these fancy machines out there that man-made. I get that. I said, but if you closed your eyes right now and put out your hand, and I put a piece of ice in it, would you know what you had in your hand without looking? Yeah. If I took an orange and I put an orange in your hand, would you know what you had in your hand? A golf ball. Would you know whether it was something hard or something soft or something fuzzy? Would you know? Yes. Why? Because this instrument wasn't man-made. This instrument was God-made. And it's connected to the most incredible computer in the world. And so you can talk to me about all this instrumentation, and that's cool. But don't think I'm not using some pretty fancy instruments here, because I am. And then you have other people, they say, how did you know? And it's almost like they want to test you. How did you know? How did you find that? And I'm thinking to myself, like, I don't know. I just kind of like went like that, and this is where it led me, you know? Well, that's not very scientific. Well, depends who you credit for science. Of course it's scientific. Pasquale Sarasoli used to say something that is appropriate to say in response to that right about now. If science can't prove it, that's too damn bad for science. Because it was true. Look, how many times have we been called the quacks and the kooks and the charlatans because we say like a fever is the natural way that the body fights an infection, only to years later have that be what everybody knows, including the entire medical profession. But first we had to take the kick in the ass and be called the jerk. And when we stuck to our principle, because of our philosophy, because of our understanding, before science caught up, finally science caught up and figured out that what we were saying all along, because we understood it through our philosophy, was true. I keep this on opened in my Google when I go Google things on the phone, because so often I want to share it with people. So I'll find it real quick since it's here. Boy, I got a lot of stuff open in there. Here we go. If you Google inflammation and healing, one of the first things that comes up before you even have to like click on a link is a little quick something that has a link to it, but without clicking on it, you can just read it, at least here in my phone. And this is what it says. Inflammation is a defense mechanism in the body. The immune system recognizes damaged cells, irritants, and pathogens, and it begins the healing process. Now listen to this next line. Inflammation is part of the body's immune response. Infections, wounds, and any damage to tissue would not be able to heal without an inflammatory response. Would not be able to heal without an inflammatory response. Oh, well, I had to take anti-inflammatories. And oh, if you get hurt, you have to put ice and rest and elevate and compress. And look, you want to do that, do it. I'm not going to yell at you or call you a mixer or any of that stuff. All I'm going to say is, I don't do it. And the reason I don't do it is because I was grown up in this philosophy. And it's not like my dad sat me down and read me the green books. It would have been cool maybe if he did, but maybe it wouldn't have worked for me. You know what he did? I'd come home with my knee all busted up and it looked like a soccer ball. And I'd go, what is it, Dad? And he'd go, it's pain. He'd go, you want to play the game? You got to deal with the pain. And I'm like, okay. And so I just learned. Because I'd see that thing go back to normal without doing anything. I'd see the body heal. I stepped on a tack. I was at a swimming pool. The lifeguards are screaming in my face, you need a tetanus shot, you need a tetanus shot. I'm like, I mean, I knew I never had a shot. I called my dad. Dad, I stepped on a tack. Yeah? They're screaming at me. They want me to get a tetanus shot. He goes, did you bleed? I go, yeah. He goes, okay, have fun. He hangs up the phone. I got home that night. He gets home from the office, and he never says anything to me about my foot or the tack or anything. I'm like, well, my dad loves me. These people don't even know me. I guess he's right. And I never worried about it again. So when, everybody was learning about vaccines and trying to decide, should I do it, should I not do it, do I believe what these chiropractic nuts are telling me or not, I never had to think about it. I never had to worry about it. I didn't care what the science said. I already lived through it. And so I'm sharing this with some of you who didn't live through it, who may be getting struggled with that. I can't tell you, take my word for it, but maybe you should. Take my word for it. It's real. We do have an amazing, incredible innate intelligence within us. It is from Speed Coaching. I hope I gave you something that you can all use. Thank you.